Yes, guys, welcome back to Max Talks Football. I am joined today, he's on the other side of the microphone today, Tom Williams. I'm going to pronounce you the king of National League threads. How are you doing, Tom?
Yeah, mate, I'm good, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me on as well.
I'm very good. When I set up this podcast, I was kind of wanted a different array of people coming on, players, managers, and we're only at that infancy stage yet. But I wanted to get people like you on who are like at the hub, the heartbeat of like the National League Twitter, because it is starting to get a bit more clout on Twitter like that. So thank you very much for coming on. Let's get straight into it. You've accrued something like 10, 20,000 followers on Twitter. Where's that come from? Why did you want to do so? And what kind of made you start tweeting threads about the National League and lower league football?
Yeah, so obviously, like, I've always loved football, and when I was growing up, my parents used to call me Stato. Like, I was just always like into stats and just any football. Yeah. Like, I used to obviously, we spoke about on when we spoke before, we used to play Football Manager, and like I think I used to do my dad's head in. I'd be saying to him, I'm managing in the Belgian second division at the minute, and blah blah blah, and he'd be like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just what are you talking about? So I've always had that interest, like at deep levels of football, and then it actually came about summer before last. I finished my first year uni exams, and I was like, me and my girlfriend were watching lots of Grey's Anatomy, and don't get it wrong, it was all right, but there was only so many episodes. Like, we were watching like 6 episodes a day, and I was like, so we'd be watching it, and then eventually I just went on my phone on Twitter, and I'm like, and then not sign a few players, and I thought, you know what, like, I don't know much about Toby Adebayo, so I thought, I'll look him up and watch his clips, and I thought people might want to see this, so I just screen recorded a few clips and put it on, and people were like, yeah, this is well good. So then I did a few more, and then it's just gone from there. Like, it's snowballed massively. Like, I've fallen into it, and that's always difficult when people come to me and say, people come to me for advice, how do I get into it? And a lot of the time, I'm like, I don't actually have like a set plan that I did. It just sort of happened, and that sounds a bit rubbish, but that's just kind of how it did happen.
No, I think it's wicked. I think that's the hardest bit as well. Like, just jumping into something and doing it and not being scared to fail. Because I think, talking about my coaching kind of background, I think at school we're told, like, you have a spelling test of like 10 spellings and you get 8 right. You always talk about the 2 that you got wrong, and you kind of taught that making mistakes is kind of wrong. So listen, you jumped in and took a risk, and hopefully it was paying off. We obviously know that, but hopefully it pays off big time in the future. So what did you study at university? Have you had a mathematics background, or is it just a random course?
Yeah, so I do accounting. Yeah, but actually I didn't do maths A level. So very fortunate. My course that I do is like most accounting courses you need maths A level for, but the one that I do, it didn't. You just needed like certain grades at A level, which I had, and I did history, English, psychology. So all my sort of, don't get me wrong, at school I was alright in maths, but like my preferred stuff, I always like writing. I've always liked writing and talking. I talk a lot. That's my biggest thing. I get told off for that. Yeah, I talk too much. But so it is a maths based thing, but with accounting, like, people don't like maybe hear accounting and think it's all maths, but we don't do that much maths with accounting. A lot of it's like written questions, and so I do that, and we do use a lot of Excel, so that's kind of where the charts and stuff and that, so I can use Excel, which is quite lucky.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I did my degree for sports broadcasting, I went into thinking, the writing's the kind of stuff that I really like. I was good at English at school, English lit and English language. And then as soon as I did the course, like you said, the talking and the kind of presenting side and the radio stuff I really enjoyed more. We once done a task where we got to watch a 90-minute game, a Premier League game, and you've got to write your match report 20 minutes after the final whistle. It has to be finished and sent off. So I'm watching Chelsea-Cardiff in the Premier League. Cardiff are 1-0 up. I'm writing up what a shock it is for relegation battlers Cardiff beating Chelsea 1-0. Chelsea scored 2 goals in the last 2 minutes. And I was like, I don't know if I could do this stress writing. So, yeah, it's definitely, well, it's good that you do the writing stuff as well. And obviously that kind of comes with the threads you do. So it started off with your love for Notts County. Are you from that way? How did you start supporting Notts County? Is it your dad, your family? Talk us more about that.
Yeah, so I'm from Nottingham. It's where I'm born and raised and lived all my life until like I come to uni. So, but my dad's actually from Liverpool, and he was a Liverpool season ticket holder until he moved to Nottingham because of my mum. So like my very, very, very early memories of football are Liverpool. Like I've never said this before, but Michael Owen like was my idol. I guess when I was like very, very little, like he was like the guy. But it was actually my dad's friend from work. So obviously like Liverpool was like my dad when we first were Nottingham, he'd go back for games and then, but to take me was like impossible. So it was actually my dad's friend at work called Paul, and we actually don't know where Paul's gone. He moved abroad, and we don't know like where he's gone. So hopefully, if he's listening, hopefully he's out there. But we went to a game. I can't remember what game it was, but it was like a relegation battle. It was like end of the season. Notts need to win to pretty much stay up. And
what year is this? Do you think roughly?
Oh, I reckon it's like.
Well, how old are you?
Yeah, I reckon it's like I'm probably 7, 8. Yeah. Talking like late early like 08, 09, that sort of those sort of years, and we stayed up just, and it was like it might not have been that one game, but it was like a game that they needed to win the next 2 or 3 games to stay up, sort of thing, and they did, and I just loved it. I remember after the game, the buzz, like everyone was walking out like buzzing, and I was like, oh, this is wicked, and just like gone from there really, and just I remember like just Notts rather than going to Forest games, which is weird because a lot of people would go Forest. Do you know what I mean? So.
What was the attraction to go to like the lower league football? Because as someone who's played there for or played in both, obviously League 1, League 2, but also like the non-league stuff, they're compared to the Premier League, like obviously the community and being a lot closer to the players, especially I see it in young players. Even I was at Chesterfield the other day, the players are always signing autographs when they're warming up, and you just wouldn't get that, I don't think, in the Premier League. Was it that kind of thing which attracted you to the non-league or the lower league side of things?
Yeah, no, massively. Like the connection with fans, and obviously that's kind of how it's grown now. A bit older on Twitter, like you actually interact with players. Like you've got no chance of doing that at Premier League level.
Yeah.
And even when I was a kid, even little things like you can go down and see the mascot. And that sounds silly, but as a child, like that's wicked. And obviously in Premier League, you're not going to do that. So yeah, it's just like you say, that community, that family, and I would say that is what Notts have got, is a massive community feel to the club.
It's a massive club in it as well. It's got both.
Yeah, it is a big club. There's a lot of fans, and what's great to see now is you see it through the generations. Like we used to get criticised for having like an older fan base, and now I'm sure we'll get onto it later. We're like becoming a much younger fan base, and it's like a trendy club to support now as well. So it's quite good. It's like it's a real journey.
I had 2 friends who went to uni in Nottingham. One on one side, one on the other side, and it's a very trendy young university town, which has a lot of potential, as you're saying, especially with the brand of football they're playing now, to grow and be big. So you quickly, well, I don't know if it was quickly or slowly, it's all about the half graph really, but you got to 1,000 followers, and you're saying that was a big milestone for you.
Yeah, it was massive. It was the biggest milestone I've had, I think, because even though it's mad, I've gone on to have like a lot more. Don't get me wrong, I've not got like loads and loads of followers. Some of the accounts on Twitter have got like hundreds of thousands, and it's like that's just crazy. But I think 1,000 will always be like the big one. I remember my girlfriend said to me, when you get to 999, I'll download Twitter and get that 1,000th follower. So yeah, she did. She was the 1,000th follower. So it was a pretty big one. I think that's the first time where I probably thought, this could go somewhere, I guess.
And what kind of things were you finding were successful? Was it the individual scouting reports? Was it the teams? Was it the kind of tactical analysis you do on players and teams?
Yeah, it's massively changed. Like initially, it was all threads, and I still do the threads. I've not done one for a while, to be fair, because I normally do it on new signings and things like that. It's sort of I still do them. They were what initially were getting the traction, and then I find now like stats posts do quite well, like just posting some stats up and creating a bit of debate and a bit of conversation around them. And like it's weird. Sometimes you'll do like a thread, and I think, yeah, this is going to be really good. Yeah. And then like only 20 people like it, and you're like, oh. And then sometimes you put a
Yeah, no, go on, keep going.
Yeah, then sometimes you put a post up, and like I put a tweet out about a Swansea analyst job the other day. Literally just put it out. It wasn't really like anything deep about it, and it like got like 10,000 likes or something stupid. Like it was just like exploded. So it is really random. I'll be honest.
When I was just kind of getting into making my channel, and the advice you get was just do 100 videos and then go from there, because your first one's not going to get loads and your 40th one's probably not going to get loads, and then like you said, you put all this effort into making a great podcast, a great interview, and it doesn't do great, and something you didn't think was brilliant does well. So you just got to kind of stay consistent with it. So with all the research and those threads you're making, what software are you using? Because I know the later stage of my career, a lot of Y Scouts being used. Is that what you're using, or are you using something else?
Yeah, I use Y Scout's the main one for the data and the stats. And then in terms of, I'll be honest, a lot of the stuff I do off of like my iPhone. I just screen record clips. Like, people think I get the clips from Y Scout. I actually don't. What I do is, it's really painful. I go and watch loads and loads and loads of highlights games, and then clip an individual clip. So I've literally got to, before the game, I'll look at where he's played in that game and what number he is, so I know who he is on the pitch. And if you watch it on the phone as well, like, it's really small, so I'm like looking, and I've got him there, and then I literally just watch him for the highlights, and sometimes only 2 minutes, and it's like, and you're having to watch like 20, 30 highlights packages, not in packages, like literally like the 2-minute ones the EFL do after a game or whatever. So yeah, that's what I use. It's not, there's nothing like too high tech. Y Scout is like a godsend, because I wouldn't have like the expected goals. I wouldn't be able to work that out myself. So
and like I said, in my later stage of my career at the minute, it's definitely coming in. Where at Wickham it was more of like a privilege, obviously Y Scout and the coaching staff were using it, and if we wanted to do individual analysis, they'd kind of use it and give us our clips and things like that. But obviously it's kind of filtering down the leagues now, with our league in the National League being, I think, what are we saying, like there's 2 or 3 teams which aren't full time. Do you think that is going to keep filtering down, and that the use of an analysis and data in the lower leagues is just going to get bigger and bigger?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it will, just because like teams will be left behind if they don't use it. In a way, it's like that much an invaluable tool. I don't think that you can put full reliance on stats and data, because they can be misleading, and they, you have to take context with everything. And I think the clubs that are doing the eyes-on scouting and watching loads of video footage and using the stats analysis, the teams that are doing that are going to get an advantage. And I think that there's that many people in the game now as well that want to do it. I'm talking like people that come out of uni. Like, it just seems mad for teams not to do it, and even part-time clubs. Like, it just gives you a massive advantage. So I think they will filter down, but it'd be interesting, because obviously Y Scout only goes down to National League North and South.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll start taking it further down. I don't know, but there probably will be a demand for it.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. If the person using it kind of knows what they're looking at and has some sort of a really good understanding of the game of football. Because I've had this debate. I said I listened to Talk Sport, and someone could have the same stats, and you could argue Harry Kane's a bottle jaw, but Harry Kane actually turns up in the big games. Like, it's just, it frustrates me. And there's been a bit of a tendency recently to get, I think, especially Twitter, which is not the best place to get your football information, but like, for us to get stat completely obsessed. Do you think that's kind of a thing people do, or do you think, I think people can get obsessed by stats. What do you think? Yeah,
no, massively. And I think, it's like, to add to your point there, you could look at, say, shots a game. You could look at a player taking loads of shots and think, that's really good, he's taking loads of shots. But A, it doesn't tell you where he's taking the shots from, and B, someone might look at that and go, oh, he's taking so many shots, he doesn't pass. So you have to take things in context and combination. And like, I think a lot of people think that all I do is the stat stuff, but to be honest with you, like, most of my stuff isn't even stats based anymore. Like, I still use the stats, and it gives you a good base and knowledge of a player. But there are times where I've looked at the guy's stats and thought, wow, this is what I think this player's like, and then I go and watch him, and like, he's just nothing like what you expect. So yeah, I think there's definitely an emphasis on stats and maybe overly so. I think that at like the National League level, what's good about it is that the data is somewhat limited. So I think you can get really, really bogged down in like Premier League level. They've got like access to everything. Like you could probably see how many steps a player's done in the game and stuff like that. And whilst those things can be useful, I think that people maybe are getting a little bit bogged down, which is mad for me to say because obviously I'm a stats person. But it's important to see the game as well, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when Darren Sarll came in at Woking in the last 3-4 months of my last season at Woking, he was like, come on, sit down, have a chat with me on our first day. And I said, yeah, cool. And then, how are you doing? I've heard you had a good season. I was like, yeah, I'm doing all right. I've scored this many goals. I've got assists. I'm doing like 12.5k a game. And he was like, I'm not fussed how much you run in the game. If you're a striker and you run 6k and you score 3 goals, I'm buzzing. So I was like, nah, do you know what? That's spot on, to be fair. Like, you've got to be effective as well as like back up the stats. So if we bring it back to, well, your club, Notts County, obviously they had an unbelievable season last season. But just before that, I remember playing them in League Two, and they were always towards like the bottom of League Two. I think in 2014 they're in League One and they come down. Why do you think? I said it's such a big club, such a brilliant stadium. Change rooms are massive as well. Why did Notts County struggle so long? Was there issues with the ownership? Was it just the players, managers? What was it?
Yeah, all sorts really. So we had a good season the season before we actually went down. We finished 5th, and we got to the playoffs. And it was actually Coventry we lost in the playoffs. And obviously Coventry have gone on to do what they've done, and we dropped out of the league next season. And you know, like that was a bit of a mad semi-final and stuff like that. But like Nolan was in charge then, and we were doing quite well, and then it sort of just fell apart. And like you're right, that was like a kind of a one-off season, doing well. But yeah, ownership issues really. I don't want to level it all at Alan Hardy because like he came in and you know, in effect saved the club from financial troubles, but then obviously got us relegated. I think in that last season as well, like we changed manager 3 times and
was Harry
just doesn't work, does it?
Stage? Have I made that
yeah,
up?
Harry Kuehl was in charge. No, yeah, he was in that last season. Yeah, he was there for like a few games, and then he went. Then we had Ardley, and then he stayed obviously when we went down. But like, yeah, it's I think what happened is the new owners have come in and they've recognised the potential of the club and potential of the city, and they've not tried to rush it. I think with Notts, it's always been like a one season, like you've just got that one season to focus on, whereas they've seen the bigger picture. And we didn't get promoted straight away from the National League, but we took 4 years. But those 4 years were like literally the best thing that could have happened to this club because we've been able to rebuild. We've like instilled a style of play.
Yeah.
We've improved things like off the pitch as well, and like it just like we've you know, I'm sure we'll talk about him in a minute, but we got Luke Williams in, and like that was a progression rather than just like it's all on the manager. Like it's a club philosophy, and that's what's really changed.
I was about to say, I think that started with Ian Birchall, was it? Because that was kind of when I went, whoa, they're playing football now. They're like total football. When before that, I'm trying to think of how Notts County played. I couldn't really tell you. It may be changing, like you said, from one manager to the other. So all of a sudden he comes in and he played really good football, but we're kind of always in the playoffs. And then, as you said, he obviously left. He went to Forest Green, I think. Good move for him. And obviously there's a void at the club now, and you're thinking, well, we've been on this journey for like 1 or 2 years of him playing great football. Where do we go now? So when Luke Williams come in, what was your kind of reaction? Were you a bit nervous because I think it's his first team role? Like what were your initial feelings?
Yeah, so with Birch, it was like the fan base was never fully behind him. I was always a massive fan of him because I just loved the possession style, but we did have like a softness to us, to be fair, and that was kind of exposed in the playoffs, and we never really had like a plan B or anything like that. But to be fair, we don't have a plan B now. Really, we're just so good at plan A.
Would you say Pep Guardiola has a plan B? Like,
yeah, that's the thing. I always do say to well, I don't necessarily say, but I always think when I see the comments, we got, you know, even this summer, like we should get a big striker in because we need a plan B. I think that's when you're panicking then, and that's the whole thing about this our style is we don't panic. And when Luke came in, he'd been at Swindon as top manager about, is it 2015-16 I think, and he got them relegated, which I don't think was necessarily his fault. And again, he played good football there. But I think what was interesting about that was Luke coming in was, firstly, it was an appointment that everyone got behind, like, because it was a perfect storm for him. When Ardley went, half the fan base wanted Ardley to go, half wanted him to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So when Birchall arrived, it was like half the fan base that wanted Ardley to stay were automatically against him because they wanted Ardley still.
Yeah.
And so that carried on throughout the whole time he was there. Whereas when he went, everyone was ready for a new start. And so Luke Williams definitely benefited from that. But I definitely wouldn't have thought he'd done as well as he has. Like,
amazing.
People were saying he's a great coach, but he's just amazing, I think. And amazing guy, an amazing coach, and you can see that because the players want to play for him.
Yeah, and it's always difficult if you have that style of playing. You go in at Swindon, or you're looking at Russell Martin, who is assistant manager he's at Southampton now. And I remember Guardiola had it at Barcelona when he come up from the B team. Like, they have a stinky start, like, most of the time, because you're adapting to new messages, new ways of playing. I think something I recognise between your gaffer, Stuart Maynard, our gaffer, they don't want you to make mistakes, but they put the mistakes on them, basically, because a lot of the old-fashioned fans, maybe the Ardley fans you're talking about, will be like, we'll watch the team play out from the back, lose it, and they score, and they go, see, it doesn't work. But they don't see the 9 times before when you got up the pitch and nearly scored the previous time. So it's, it hasn't got, it couldn't have gone any better, could it, really? How was last season for you?
Yeah, well, just on that, in terms of playing out, you're spot on, by the way. Like, no one ever mentions, we played out from the back and we've nearly scored. So anyone only ever focuses on when we've conceded and made a mistake. And it sounds mad, but I quite, I don't enjoy it when we make that mistake at the back, don't get me wrong. But when we do make that mistake playing out, it's like, at least the players are trying to play out like that. They're doing what has been, I'd rather that than them lump it long every single time.
Yeah.
And it's like, as well, I know it's not what you've asked, but it just sprung to my mind. The other biggest thing is when a centre-back shoots from range. I absolutely hate it. I know it sounds mad, but I hate it when
saved you in the
centre-back
playoff semi-final, didn't it? That was one of the first goals you got back in that game.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You can't, because you can't criticise Baldwin because he obviously smashed that one in the big game. But now as well, pretty much every game he'll have one from 30 yards.
Alex Ferguson said, especially the last minutes of games, he would not want his midfielders to shoot from range. He'd want them to recycle to a fullback and deliver it in the box, because when that ball goes in, especially in the last minute, you're swinging at things. Like, there's a tendency to make mistakes, and like 1 in 30 go in, didn't they? And then you get it's all over the highlights afterwards. But yeah, I can understand that. So he's Luke Williams, as we said, come in, and how many points did he get? 107 points, 117 goals, 42 conceded. He didn't win the league, which is just outrageous. We'll probably talk about a 3 up, 3 down in a minute, but we kind of alluded to already, maybe kind of what defined Notts County that season and what style of play were they playing, and they continue to be successful now as well in League Two.
Yeah, so obviously heavily possession based. I think we averaged 70% by the end of the season, which is like, it's crazy. But it's not like keeping the ball for the sake of it. It's not deep. We don't deep. We do circulate around the back. But what was the massive difference when Luke arrived? Noticeable straight away from Birch was that we play with a purpose and we have like a cutting edge to us. Whereas sometimes with Birchland it was a little bit like we're keeping the ball just for the sake of keeping the ball, and I get why you do that. You're trying to keep control. If the other team hasn't got the ball, they can't score. But we're quite a ruthless team, as seen by the fact that Langstaff scored 42 goals. Like mental, and that is the whole point. The whole system, quite simple, really. Like there's a lot of detail to it, but the end product was quite simple. It was get the ball to Maka between the posts, and he'll score. Yeah. And that's the style. Is like you keep the ball. And it developed. It evolved throughout the campaign as well. Like John Bostock's a massive player when you think of him in Notts County, but he only joined us halfway through the season, and we were already near the top. So, it was developed and got better as we brought players in. Like Jody Jones only joined us towards the back end. Again, he's a massive player for us now. So it evolved as well.
And it was a majority. Was it a 3-4-3 with a box in midfield, or was that kind of flexible?
Yeah, so well, again, it's flexible in terms of that is definitely what we play now. Is the 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, that box midfield, very much so. At one point last season, it was kind of we would play the 3-4-1-2, and we had Scott and Langstaff up top. That was probably for like around the first few games we played the two attacking fielders. Then we went to the two up front. But then Scott got injured, and he's had troubles with his injuries throughout the whole of his time in Notts, really. So he's been in and out of the team. But him and Maka have got like a really good connection on the pitch. They played together before, and so they were smashing in goals. But he got injured, so we went back to the box, and kind of since then it's kind of stayed. And this season, very much it'll be the box because we've got two players who play that role. McGoldrick and Crowley. So will very much be the box.
Well, let's talk about them. I remember watching Crowley. I think I was maybe a young pro, and he was playing like FA Youth Cup football for Arsenal, and he was like mad, like doing crazy things. And then you sign McGoldrick from many leagues above. The standard of player now you can attract once you've got that huge stadium, huge fan base, and the manager now. How do you see kind of this season playing out? So you're top of the league right now, playing the same football with better players. What are the kind of goals for Notts County this season?
Yeah, well, those two are like incredible. Like the fact that we brought those in is just mental. Like you say, McGoldrick is like been there, done it, but he's still so good. He's not like the thing with McGoldrick. He's not like a pro that's dropping down and he's like slowed down. Like he's still really, really, really good. And with Crowley, like I don't know if I've said this publicly before, but I do believe he'll be a Republic of Ireland international. Now he's not. He is English. He's from Birmingham, but he's played for Ireland youth before and England youth. And I just think like. He's that good. He will play for Ireland. Like I just have a belief that he will.
How old is he?
He's 26, so I think he's like, obviously he's in League Two at 26, so it is quite a long path. But I think if we get promoted next season, and he's playing the way he is and he continues that, I just think he's that kind of player. He's just so good. It's tough, but this season for us. Like I want us to finish top 3. I've said it from the start of the season. Lots of fans have had like different opinions. Some thought that mid-table would be success. Some think that top 7 would be success. And like I understand you don't want to put pressure on the players, but like for me, it has to be top 3 because we've come up from a league where it's one automatic place, and now there's 3 automatic places. Like surely we can finish in the top 3 with the way of football we play. Like surely. Yeah,
I think League 2 teams are getting highly protected because of the 2 up, 2 down at the minute. And you look at the start Chesterfield and made Chesterfield another huge club. Are you an advocate of changing that and trying to get 3 up, 3 down?
Yeah, massively. And I think like the League 2 clubs are protected, but like the ones that do end up dropping are like not protected, if that makes sense. Like you're protecting them, but when you actually drop, it doesn't benefit you because like us, for example, we couldn't get out of the league for ages, and like Chesterfield have been down there for ages. Like they should be in League 2, like, and they will win the league this season in the National League. And it just seems a little bit silly that they aren't in League 2. It'd be like if we were still there this season, like we would probably be in the same position as Chesterfield are, and that's no disrespect to the other teams because it's a great league. But like I just don't see why it's 2. Like it makes no sense to me. And people will say last season's a one-off. It is to an extent, but Wrexham didn't get up the season before and they finished 2nd. And like, it has an effect, a filter effect. And Hartlepool and Rochdale have come down. One of them might get back up this season. Well, might have got back up, I think, if there was 3. I can't see one of them going up if there's 2. Yeah. And it makes a massive difference having that extra spot.
I think the teams who come down, I think Hartlepool did it 2 years ago, but very rarely does a team come down and go straight back up. And then rarely does a team, when they go up, come straight back down. I think Hartlepool have been the only team who actually done both, but you've seen Harrogate go up, they've been established themselves, many other teams. Another team that went up was Wrexham. There was obviously a long ride, I'd say it's a friendly / admirable rivalry between the two clubs. How do you think, how was that rivalry? How did you see it, and how do you think they'll do this season as well?
Yeah, I think it's a competitive, friendly rivalry, like you say, and like,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of time for Wrexham and their fans. A lot of people. I think there's obviously the extremes in both fan bases, isn't there? And like, there definitely is a bit of rivalry there, and some people don't like them. But I've got a lot of time for them. I've got no bitterness towards what they're doing, because like any club would love that. I think what's happening there,
Yeah.
and like they're going to go through the leagues. They are like whether they go up this year, they probably will go up. But even if they didn't, they're going to go through the leagues like that. Those two are there, I think, for the long term.
Yeah.
And like I mean they're incredible. And what they reminded me of was like Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United. Not always the best team. Don't get me wrong, Sir Alex Ferguson Man United were brilliant, but not always that best team. But you just knew
Yeah.
that they'd score late on, like Fergie time, and like Wrexham had their own sort of version of that last season. They'd always score a late goal, and they're relentless, aren't they?
Yeah, as a player, we all, I think, I'm speaking on behalf of Willstone players, we all knew Notts County were by far the hardest team to play against. They were the best team. They had, obviously, Lang stuff up front, but it was just getting the ball off them, and like, once you get it, you're absolutely like knackered. It's because you've been chasing them around. Wrexham, 3-5-2, direct, which is normally the traditional way you kind of get out of this division. Just had too many good players who could just score out of nothing. Mullin reminds me of Jamie Vardy when he was at Fleetwood, just running, and can finish off both feet. Elliot Lee, ridiculous signing, can score out of nothing. And you just kind of, Ollie Palmer obviously suits the way they kind of play. So they just had so many players who could score in a day. And like you said, they often scored last minute. And cause problems kind of that way. But I agree. Obviously, those are two owners that have got it, hopefully, fingers crossed, and I do generally believe them, have got the club at their heart and the city at their heart. If we just allude to obviously tweets you made today, and it's been kind of, obviously we've got a mutual friend, Luke, who's made a great video about Southend. Guys, go check that out on his channel, Luke Walsh. It's pretty grim right now, isn't it, for Scunthorpe and Southend, and that just shows the importance of having good owners who have, the heart kind of in the game.
Yeah, it's awful what's happening there, and it's even Sheffield Wednesday today. I know they're a much higher level and they will be fine, but their owner put out a statement, I think, today, and he basically said, "I'm withdrawing the funding unless you stop complaining," which is like mental. I just think like the thing is though with football club owners, it's like I was speaking to this again to my girlfriend. She's about 4 shout outs in this video today. She'll be loving it, but I was speaking to her about it, and like because if I talk to football about it, it's a bit more interesting to talk about that sort of side. And I said, look, like to be a football owner, you have got to be either. I feel you either have to love the club, or there is like a sense of like ego to it, because you are basically pouring money into a club, and very very little you're going to get a return on your investment. So you've either got to have like a long term vision, and you think you can pour money in and then end up selling the club for a profit, or end up getting them up the leagues and making a profit. You either love the club and like you don't care because you just pouring money in, or there is a sense of like it is like you're showing off kind of thing. You're showing like you are the hero of that club. Yeah, exactly. You're flexing, and I think that has happened. And then the owners that have done that, and then they fall out with their fans. They just think, oh yeah, well, screw you, I'm taking my money out. You can't do that if you own a football club, because you're killing that community, and like it is awful. And Scunthorpe's like actually slightly more tragic, I think, than Southend, because they went from having a terrible owner. Yeah, it's crazy, and I think people were sort of people were criticised for even questioning where those signings, because like they were signing players that should be playing League Two, really, or like higher National League anyway, as a playing squad. Must be paying good money, surely. Like I don't know, but you assume. And I feel like sorry for them. I feel sorry for both sets, but like Scunthorpe had a terrible owner, and then went from terrible owner to having a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and then it's got even worse. Like that is just.
I didn't see that coming.
Heartbreaking.
I did not see that coming. And obviously Southend have had 10 points deducted this season. Hopefully, like we said, Twitter's not the best stuff for news, but there's maybe a glimmer of hope for them. But yeah, on to you. How old are you? 23, did you say?
Yeah.
23.
Yeah,
So what does the future kind of look for you? We've kind of exchanged messages on Twitter and discussed how, like, obviously I've had, although I've not played in the Premier League or Championship or anything like that, like, just playing football for a living, I think is the best job in the world. And the second best is being involved in football, being paid to do what you love, whether it's hundreds of thousands or just, you know, enough to pay your mortgage. What do you want to have a kind of career in the game, or would you like to start your own business? What does the future kind of hold for you, do you think?
Yeah, well, firstly, like, I think you're the first person that's got my age right. I think everyone thinks I'm a lot younger because I look a lot younger. I've got like a baby face.
You need some of this, Tom. You need some of that.
Yeah, no, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. This is like a few days of growth. This, so it's not gonna happen for me. In terms of the future, like, it's always changing. I know that sounds mad, but like when I first got the 1,000, I thought, yeah, I definitely want to do this, like analytics for a team. And now I've moved on to thinking I kind of rather do sort of media stuff. But it's really tough, like, if you've not played, I think, because like recently I've had stuff online. I don't want to like go into it too much, but people say, you know, you've not played, so what's your opinion count for? And like I get that you want to hear, you know, if I'm watching TV, you might think, well, who's this guy? Oh, he played for. It comes up, he played for blah blah blah, and then it comes up, and if I was on 10,000 followers on Twitter, people would be like, you know, what's that? So I do get it, but I think just to be realistic, I probably have to like work for myself in terms of just for money, and that sounds really like money motivated, but you've got to like pay the bills 100%. And you've got to live, and there's just not that much money in football if you aren't playing or managing. I think like managing a high level, definitely. So yeah, no, I'm not giving a definitive answer there. I think because it's like always changing for me.
You're 23, Tom. You're 23. I remember all my friends who went uni, they didn't have a clue what they're going to do. So don't worry about it. And I'm coming to the end of my football career maybe in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So I'll have the same decision to make just a lot later. So it's really good. I think you and Luke kind of struck me straight away as young people, so good in the space, kind of doing it off your own back as well. You've learned on the way, which I've found doing this YouTube stuff, like editing, tearing out my hair, but it's the best way to, rather than just getting someone else to do it. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope you do find what you want to do in the future and keep banging out the content. I'm going to leave your description and your channel and your Patreon page on the video when this comes out. So thank you very much, Tom. Top man.
No, cheers. Thank you.
See you later.